All right, everyone, we do see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I already alluded to this yesterday, that parts of the media, including the legacy media, are now calling into question whether it's really a good idea to begin censoring and suppressing people. Business Insider was honestly, funnily enough, the first, saying, I don't think that trying to suppress fringe groups will actually work, and censoring them probably won't work either. Well, no shit. I pointed that out many months ago. Others did too. Nobody took us seriously unless they were our fans. And now, lo and behold, all of the so-called experts, the talking heads with their fucking hair plug wigs, are talking about the same thing. Well, I wonder where they got that idea from. They probably got it from some random YouTuber they stumbled across. And now we have BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed, of all groups, joining the chorus of saying, we're not so sure that censoring, extremist so-called ideologies is the greatest idea. I think it might make the problem worse. Again, no shit. That's exactly what it'll do. And you were warned of this, and you gobbled down the propaganda for a while and made the situation worse, caused violence in the process. Much of what's happening right now is the responsibility of the legacy media above all other groups. But I'd like to point something out. That is, whatever a society structures itself around, all citizens eventually have a part in. The idea that you can enable heavy-handed tech or government censorship and yourself escape from being censored at some time is totally, completely wrong. It's totally laughable because that's never been the case throughout human history. Look, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A person's intent, they're part of the lamestream sort of boring-ass establishment. They say, well, it's just a little bit of censorship. We're just going to censor people with violent ideologies. Okay, who determines what ideologies are inherently violent? Well, at first they're going to aim specifically at people that are openly proclaiming violence. Well, yeah, that's probably fine. Okay, those are extremely small. You're going to make them more fanatic. Drive them underground into their echo chambers where they can start plotting destruction instead of being exposed to public discourse that largely disagrees with them. So you've just made them more fanatic and maybe given them a way to grow as they become taboo and exciting. And of course, the legacy media, clickbaity as it is, reports on these things, and all of a sudden millions of people that didn't know about some Antifa website or some white supremacist website, all of a sudden they know that it exists, they go there, maybe they get indoctrinated. Well, they never would have encountered that before. Thanks, legacy media, it's really wonderful. You just gave rise to a bunch more people who are, like, way out there, and those fringe groups will get more fringe because you're still suppressing them. That is, there's nothing there to moderate them, to keep them non-violent. Okay, they're out there, but they're not being violent. Now all of a sudden there's nothing to keep them from becoming violent and even more fanatic. Well, you've just caused that problem, legacy media. That's your responsibility. And you're the ones that were encouraging this. Now they're singing a slightly different tune. The idea that you are capable of limiting censorship, when you've enabled a group to censor, it will be aimed at everybody. Because there will be certain things that no person can say. It doesn't matter whether you're a liberal, a conservative, or whether you're more out there on some fringe. It doesn't matter whether you're a monarchist like I am or a really, really out there ANCAP who thinks smash the state and sort of Art Deco forever. It doesn't really matter because everybody is subject to the same censorship. You have equal misery under the law at that point. If, however, the society structures itself around liberty. Here's the easy solution to all of our problems with both the fringe groups that people are so worried about, and they're smaller than they all suspect. It's like Shark Week. Oh, the sharks will eat a couple people every year. Not a big problem. You think of it as a big problem because you've been told it is by the propagandists in the media and opportunists within government and certain social groups that tell you the problem's 10,000 times worse than actual reality suggests. If, however, you structure your society around liberty and freedom, you don't have these problems. You don't have the censorship problem, nobody's being censored. You always have a moderating force on any fringe group that crops up. And people who are given over to liberty, who have adopted that as their primary national value and social value, will probably, if they are taking that concept seriously, never join such a fringe. They're not going to become an anarcho-communist because it's a foreign concept. They're not going to become like a total ethno-nationalist because they've got a totally different social model that they themselves happen to agree on. All you have to do is prop up liberty. But that requires that these tech firms be responsible. It requires that the media be responsible, which is a laugh. It's a good thing that the legacy media is dying off because the alt media is far better on this token. The sooner that they cancel your newspaper subscriptions, cancel your cable service, stop watching Fox, stop watching CNN, don't even go to legacy media websites like Salon, Being Liberal, Breitbart, Drudge. They're all the same. Okay, maybe Tucker Carlson's funny once in a while. Who cares? He's still a propagandist. Maybe Matt Drudge is more forthright than some other random journalistic figure. It doesn't matter. There's still propaganda there. That's what you get there. I'm sorry, that's what you get. You have a big multi-million-dollar entity that takes ad revenue. You think that they're not being controlled, at least to some extent, by those people that are funding them, that are giving them money? Of course they are. It's the way websites work, too. Why do you think I spurn ad revenue? Business contracts. You should spurn them. Yeah, it's an easy way to get money. It's also an easy way to become reliant upon third parties that continuously fund you. And they're like, oh yeah, we got money back for funding this person. We'll fund them more, and a little bit more, and pretty soon, yeah, you're making millions of dollars. You're also being totally controlled by other people. That's the problem. All independent media figures and analysts and people who just give their opinions on YouTube or some blog, you should crowdfund. Keep your independence. It'll be worth a lot more in the future than it is right now. As the paradigm continues to shift, there will be those that are more respected than others because of the models that they've employed. That's another prediction for you. But engaging in censorship, my goodness, what a terrible idea. I can't think of anything more anathema to the founding spirit of the country. And I've said this too, I've heard from libertarians say, oh yeah, but it's a tech firm. They're a private entity. They're allowed to tell you what you can and cannot say. Oh, okay. Legally, yeah, maybe they're entitled to do that. I think we should strip them of that legal entitlement through a constitutional amendment, by the way, because human communication now relies so solidly on the internet that it's too important not to protect with the First and Fourth explicitly. I think tech firms, insofar as they're coordinating human interaction in that way, should be subject to the same constitutional model. And it's not, by the way, unlawful to do that. You can pass whatever constitutional amendment you want. There's nothing anyone can do about it if it passes. It becomes legal. It is declared legal unilaterally by an amendment existing on that token. Okay, maybe it's legally something they can do. Is it a good idea? There's a big difference between what you can do and what you should do. I can go around in a lightning storm carrying a metal rod over my head. I can do that. I can slather myself with steaks and go swimming, in a shark-infested waters. Or I can go poke the bear literally with a nice big sirloin hanging around my neck. I can do all of these things. Are they good ideas? Yeah, probably not. I can dose myself up to the eyeballs on still legal research chemicals anytime I want. Is that a good idea? Yeah, I don't think so. I can go out in the middle of the night into the worst part of any big city, full of gang members. And I can specifically and explicitly wear the wrong colors in the wrong neighborhood. I can do that. I'm legally entitled to wear red in a Crips zone. I'm legally entitled to walk up to a group of Bloods wearing all blue and flashing gang signs. It's perfectly legal to do that. It's not a great idea to do that, though. It's just, there's a difference between these two things. Why isn't anybody else talking about that fact? Yeah, you can legally have tech censorship of human opinion on the largest platform of human communication, which is the internet. You can have that. Is it a good idea? No, it's not a good idea. We should avoid it. And when people are sitting there saying, oh, well, defending the tech firms, oh, well, they're legally entitled, that's not the point. You should be arguing against it anyway on principle, because it's a shitty idea. Shitty ideas should be called out as shitty. That's the way things should work. If we had more criticism to levy at groups and stopped bogging ourselves down over what was or was not legal, maybe we'd be a better society. Maybe we'd be more free. Maybe we'd be more prosperous. I think that the engine of the economy being so reliant upon that form of human communication is also too important not to protect at that level. There are rumblings now within our government of regulating the online world as a public utility. I completely oppose this. These firms should protect themselves by going to Congress and asking explicitly for a constitutional amendment that simply legally defines them as de facto public utilities and extends the First and Fourth Amendment to them. That way they save money on policing content. They don't have to do that unless it's specifically illegal anymore or pornographic or something like, the way things were. So they can police that sort of content without having to police things that are merely offensive or kind of on the fringe of being offensive. Well, it'd save them a lot of money. You need a lot fewer moderators. It's more constrained. Yeah, you save millions. Wonderful. Number two, they save money in the sense of their advertisers aren't going to flee the platform. They're just going to be looking at how large the audience is to advertise, or how targeted the audience is, based on demographics or something. They'll no longer flee to some other potentially alt-media platform because none of them will be censoring people beyond what you are either. The fact is there will be a hard cap on how censored content can be, so that would be the maximum of what would be considered family-friendly. It would be roughly PG-13 or something like that. You wouldn't have dumbed-down content anywhere on the net because it would become illegal to create such a situation. It'd be wonderful. Unless it was specifically geared towards, our platform's only for little kids or something. Okay, YouTube's not. YouTube's only for adults. It's a totally different story. Twitter is for adults. For people who are, above a certain, I think it's like, 13 or 14 or something. Those are people that are old enough. Yeah, okay, they can see someone smoking weed. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to start doing it. Stuff like that. By preventing the tech firms from having to police content, the government can also protect them from foreign countries that are trying to lead on them too. Every time Erdogan has a bad day, he shuts down Twitter. Every time Erdogan has a bad day, he tells Twitter, take this picture down, it's unflattering. Or the Chinese government says, hey, we want this critical blog suppressed or something. We shouldn't be doing that. We should expect better of our tech firms within the United States. These are U.S. firms. We should tell them to resist the temptation to bow before foreign governments and orders. We should also tell them to resist the temptation to censor domestic content unless it's criminal in nature or pornographic or something that's generally agreed upon to have its own platforms or something. There are a million sites where you can go for that sort of material. As for general social media content, general analysis, general political discourse, that's mundane. It doesn't matter if somebody subjectively finds it offensive. You start censoring that content, and pretty soon society will shift. What's considered offensive will shift as a result. And people who thought, well, censorship is great, it's just being aimed at the fringe. All of a sudden, now you're part of the fringe on one or two of the things you believe in, and now you're censored. How wonderful is that? You just screwed yourself. Congratulations. How short-sighted and despicably dumb you are. See, that's the problem. Even if you believe that the fringe as it's currently envisioned should be suppressed, you will eventually probably be part of that fringe. Look at how much society's changed over time from era to era. It happens on a decade-to-decade basis. It doesn't take 100 years. It takes a decade tops for it to shift wildly on various issues. Things that are considered acceptable now were considered unacceptable 10, 20 years ago. Things that were considered unacceptable have become acceptable. Things that were considered acceptable have become unacceptable. Groups that would not have been considered fringe 20 years ago are now considered lunatics. Groups that are considered centrist now were the lunatics of the past. That's the way that things go. It's going to continue being that way too. You really want to kneecap the entire internet, bring it into line with subjective morality that shifts at a whim? I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's a place for public discourse that should involve all parties. And hopefully, we're not suppressing fringe groups because then they become more fanatic. It's what's always happened. They'll develop their own language creole to get around censorship. They'll develop their own sites. They'll develop methods to hide their presence, to become even more anonymous. And pretty soon they become a very compact, small, very fanatic, and potentially violent order that no longer experiences outside influence that could help to moderate that content. That's what ends up happening. Congratulations, you've just given rise to a bunch of violent militants. They were just disenfranchised outsiders before, now they're violent militants. Congratulations, you just caused a school to get attacked, or something like that. And I hope the legacy media feels happy about the fact that they're lending their voices to a situation in which that can happen. It's happened before. It's observable throughout human history. There are a million examples of this occurring. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to the short-sighted people for having so little intellect that you think that censorship can actually be targeted against what you deem to be a fringe, and that society won't ever shift again, that we're at the end of all history, nothing ever changes. Every generation thinks that, and every generation is wrong. It's only a matter of how long it takes for you yourself to be targeted by the same abilities that you've given some government or some tech firm to target those you disagree with now. That's about all. Peace out.